Welcome on to another MAME video tutorial? Question mark, fellow dazzlers and new players alike. What's going on, everybody? Razzle Joestar here, taking it on a trip through time as we do an unplanned video. I mean, I know a lot of my tutorials come out kind of almost when I feel like it, but this was something I like to call a I found out something kind of video. So, a little bit of story time here real quick. You can see this has to do with Taito Legends. I was dorking around with Taito Legends on the PSC X2 emulator. Actually, it's a nightly build. And this is Taito Legends being ran on it. I couldn't figure out how to fix the graphics, because the graphics here look all like weird and corroded. If I can remember how to actually do this. So it began with me trying to figure out how to fix this, and I never actually found out how to fix this because of the other thing I'm going to talk about here. Look at that! So I wanted to figure out how to fix that. I never did, because what happened was I found my way over to the PC Gaming Wiki site, because I forgot that there was actually a PC port of Taito Legends. And here's something that's worth pointing out in the key points. ROMs are in the installation folder, allowing for use with MAME, although some might need renaming and or new files with newer versions of MAME. Well, hot dog! That means that with the PC version of Taito Legends 1 and 2, we may have a way of obtaining legal ROMs. Because this is also a good example of emulation marches forward. As I like to say, as new versions of MAME come out, sometimes ROMs are fixed, sometimes new ROMs, new files are able to be dumped, and allow for a more arcade-accurate experience, so to speak. Let's go into here. I've got the Taito Legends PC port here pulled up. For Taito Legends 2, you're virtually going to do the same thing. I've got my MAME here as well. I have a nice little... I meant to type new, but I typoed new. I just went with it. You can already see I've got all the games from Taito Legends 1 and 2 already packaged here. Should be some 64 games. And we'll see that some of these don't work with MAME and whatnot. But how do you get these? How do you get these out of here? Well, if you go into the ROMs folder here on Taito Legends, you'll see that they're folders. We need them to be zip folders, because remember, MAME ain't gonna find this if it's a folder. They need to find it if it's a zip folder. So if you go into your file here, you can see that you've got all these weird random files, which these are what, if you've never taken a peek inside inside of a ROM before, this is what you'd find. These little weird named files, and it varies for each different game and whatnot. So here's what you're gonna do. You need to repackage this into a zip folder. Unfortunately, that's kind of easy to do with Windows. So what you're going to do is Control-A. That highlights everything. Now make sure your mouse cursor is hovering over one of these here files. If you kind of go randomly, you'll deselect everything. So if you're kind of like over one of these file names, you right-click, then you're going to go, you could use Compress To. Takes a little bit longer, a few extra second longer for Compress To. So go Show More Options, Send To, Compress Zip Folder. Give it a few seconds. This will pop up, and you'll see that the name of whatever the zip file is matches whatever you right-clicked on. You're just going to name that whatever the file is in the ROMs folder. There's one game that's going to be an exception to this, and we'll get to that in a second. So that's going to be sharp.zip. Then what you're going to do is go into your ROMs folder. We're going to copy and paste that. If you want to experiment with this and you already have these games, I wouldn't, because if you're using a newer version of MAME, you're gaining nothing by this. Taito Legends 2 released in 2006, so if you know MAME and you know emulation, a lot of these games have already been updated many times over, or at least once since then, and it's going to run into problems. And you're going to do that for each and every game on this list. That's how you repackage them into ROMs. The only exception here is Invaders. I thought this was Space Invaders. I don't know what this actually pertains to, because I didn't really poke around with it. If you do want Invaders, you're going to look for Space Invaders. You're going to look for, here we go, SITV down here. That's Space Invaders, and in newer versions of MAME will pop up as Space Invaders TV version revision 2. So, what do you do with these? Like I mentioned something about emulation marching forward and games working, maybe not working. So let's go back over here. I've got my new version. So new is a fresh install of the most recent version of MAME, at least as of this video, which should be 0.275. So if we go into our availables folder, you can see you've got all these games here that match what we see in the ROMS folder. It's all 64 games that were included in Taito Legends 1 and 2, but some of these work, some of these don't work, right? If we go to Arabian Magic, we get this here. Required ROM/disk images for the selected system are missing or incorrect. Please acquire the correct files or a different system. And it gives you a list of all the files that you need to find or add or whatever that it can't find in the zip folder. That means that between when Taito Legends 2 came out and whatever version of ROM that they're using and today's present day, 2025, so that's a whopping 20 years for the original Taito Legends and 19 years for the original Taito Legends, or Taito Legends 2 rather, that this has been updated at least once, and these files are needed but aren't in there. You'll run into this problem if you've ever acquired, you've had, like, say you had ROMs sitting on your computer, and then you go get the newest version of MAME, and say those ROMs been sitting there for a few years, you get the newest version of MAME, you might encounter a similar issue. Or if you go to any random website out there and try to acquire ROMs, you may run into a similar issue as well. If you want to know where to find updated ROMs, there's Clear MAME Pro, which I don't actually know how to use. I've been meaning to get around to that. And there's, of course, ways of catching fish with a net, if you get what I mean. So, what games here actually natively work in 0.275, meaning that you don't actually need to do anything. You don't need to update nothing. You don't need to go to old versions. None of that nonsense. You're gonna look for these games in the folder. I did make a handy list here. So that's gonna be Space Invaders Part 2, which, fun fact too, if you're looking for a game in MAME, you can of course type in a name, so Alpine Ski Set 1, but we're looking for Space Invaders Part 2, so I want to show you it here in MAME. So what do we do with that? You can go to your search bar here, and if we type it, I'm trying to make this small enough where I can, there we go. Now if you go in here and you type in, we're looking for Space Invaders Part 2, so if I go invade, if I could type right, that'd be great. And then PT2, there it goes, pulls up Space Invaders Part 2. Runs perfectly fine. Well, there's no sound, but note that, I don't know if you caught that, the emulation status for it was yellow, meaning that it's not fully emulated yet, so this may be updated in the future. It just depends. You see the game kind of just runs fine here, but yeah, you don't got any sound. I'm actually really garbage at Space Invaders. So Jungle Hunt, that one works. Ninja Kids works fine as well. There is Space Invaders, which is TV version, revision 2, at least for this version of MAME, that's what pops up as. Here's an interesting one. So if we go to Tokyo Scramble Foundation, so Tokyo B, it says it's a bootleg ROM, which is kind of funny. Now I don't know if that's just in present MAME or if like we jump back to older version of MAME, which we'll get to that. That has anything to do with it. That's kind of funny though, that it comes up as a bootleg ROM. Alpine, which you probably saw on the top there. Alpine Ski. Here's one that you might need to redo. So I mentioned having to redo one of the files. There's actually a couple of them. So Rainbow Island, which doesn't work, in the game folder, in the Taito Legends, it's Rainbow. You actually, when you repack that, will need to rename it RB Island. If you rename it rainbow.zip, it's going to pull up, you're doing the wrong game. It needs to be RB Island.zip. The next game in our working list, Bubble Symphony. So again, the folder is going to be named Bub Simp E. You need to change it to Bub Symph E. Now, I don't know if that's due to maybe older MAME used a different file name for that, because I'm not sure if Taito Legends on the PC is using MAME or not. That's something worth looking into, I think. Kind of, because a lot of these files, naming conventions match the short names here in MAME. Just it uses folders instead of zip folders. Anyways, Crazy Balloon. I tried playing that game, and that game frustrated the ever-loving heck out of me. Crazy Balloon. Darius G. Dungeon Magic. So you notice in that zip file, I put a 0. That's just because it kept trying to Notepad kept trying to autocorrect Dungeon M to Jungeon, so I just put that 0 there to stop it from doing that. Gun and Frontier. Gunlock. Liquid Kids. Metal Black. Good old Nerve-Wracking Kicks. And Wild Western. So those games work natively in 0.275. You don't need to actually, again, do any updates at all to get those games to run fine. Not all of them are going to be in fully emulatable condition. As we saw, like, for example, with Space Invaders Part 2, the sound isn't working. And that's not that you're doing anything wrong there. Keep in mind, of course, if anything is a yellow bar, like here, Grid Seeker doesn't work, but just as an example, if it's a yellow bar, it just means that the emulation isn't quite there yet. The game can run, but you're not going to have, maybe it might be the sound or the graphics aren't quite there yet. So, runs, but you might have some, maybe the sounds aren't quite accurate, or the graphics may be a little bit glitchy or so. So what if you want to try to play these without having to download or update any ROMs? Well, I'm glad you asked. I haven't found it yet, full disclosure, because I don't think I have them all working. But what you're going to want to do is jump back to an older version of MAME. We're going to jump into DeLorean and go back in time, so to speak. So one way you can do is, of course, you can go to MAME, mamedev.org. You can go to downloads here, and then you can actually go to previous releases, and you can browse MAME versions all the way back to 1997. This has been around for a while. Taito Legends 2, according to Wikipedia, launched in North America in 2007 on the PS2, and 2007 for Windows and the PS2. So I actually went a year back and downloaded a 2006 version. The latest version in 2006 is going to be 0.111. Now, if you do download the binary for Windows, it's going to run off the command prompt, and I can't get that to work in Windows 11 for whatever reason, and I don't feel like trying to do that anyways. If you don't know what a command prompt is, look into something called MS-DOS. Basically, you have to type in commands to get the computer to do what you wanted, and that's where you get things like cd : yada 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 / yada yada yada, and then hopefully you typed everything in right. If not, you get the thing telling you back command or file name. But fortunately, good old Progetto snaps. If you've been on my channel, you've heard me mention this place here and there. It is Antipisa, Italy. This is a place you can get a bunch of different resources, not ROMs, but just additional things like images and whatnot for your games on MAME. So what we're going to do is, over on this left side, it's kind of hard to see. Fortunately, kind of glows here, that's kind of cool. But anyways, you're going to go to MAME UI. Click that. And then you can see that Snaps here's got older versions. So if we want that 2006 version, we got it right here. December 11th, 2006, which I think is a different date. Yeah, different date than this one, but that's because, this build came out a day later. Believe it or not, yeah. Having MAME with a UI was a big deal back in the day. So, I'd like to see that Snaps has been active for quite some time. I believe these are developed by someone else, and Progetto Snaps just, I know it's Antipasa, Italy, I'll just call it Progetto Snaps, host it on their website as a way of making it a bit easier to get found. Now, I do have that already downloaded. It's going to download as a 7-zip, so not an exe. And then all you're going to do is just extract it into your MAME folder. So I've got that here. So we get this pulled up, and we're about to take a blast to the past, because this is kind of how it used to look. Now you can see that MAME is searching games, because that's what MAME used to do when you load it up. It would just early versions of MAME UI would load it up, and we can see that we have got 42 games. So that's 42 out of the 60 something. So there's still a few games that aren't working correctly. As older versions of MAME, I believe the game wouldn't actually pull if it wasn't working. So you don't actually see it on the game list itself. It would only show you sets that are working completely. So even though this is a new install, I didn't move them over from that folder. So if you ever need to add a directory for your ROMs, let me run that by you again. You go Options, Directory. I apologize if you hear any coughing in the background. Ray's been having problems with allergies. Anyways, you're going to go ROMs, and then what you do is hit Browse. I already have this set up, but I'll show you anyways. You go Browse, and then it'll pop up this folder here. So what you can do is open up this PC, and then you open up OS, open up Users, Username, Documents, MAME, and then I'm using the Neo thing, and then ROMs. Okay. And then whenever you do that, MAME's going to go ahead and search anyways. Doing it's the same in newer versions of MAME. It's just you're using the interface. You don't have like a little thing that pops up and shows all the icons and whatnot. And then you can see that you've got it here. Now, you may be wondering, okay, well, is MAME even picking up on files at all that I put in there? Like, what's the dealio? So what you can do is you can go File, and you can do Audit All Games. So what this is going to do is it's going to run through the entire ROM set, and it's going to analyze the games and see. So if you've got, like, for example, you just moved over all those... let's say you acquire a ROM set from somewhere and you just want to make sure they work. You can use Audit All Games to do that. And you can see there's already some stuff coming up as not found. So even by 2007, or this 2006 build, we can see that, it's doing all games, so I'm sure we'll find some. Right, you can see total 64, correct 42, incorrect 22. So there's 22 games that are in that Taito Legends folder for 1 and 2 that aren't correct, meaning that they're missing things, basically. They're missing things or have incorrect files. So it'd be interesting to go back in time and see, like, what... that's already done. It'd be interesting to go back in time and see, like, how far back do we have to go before we find the version of MAME that these two collections use. And do these two collections even use the same build of MAME? Food for thought. But we can see that these games here work perfectly fine, or at least work in this version of MAME. So, I think I've dragged this out longer than I need to, but just a kind of an interesting thing. A little thing to see how things get packaged and how you can actually pry out ROMs from official retail releases. I know, I don't remember which, but I know there's a collection somewhere. So I was browsing on PC Gaming Wiki where it said that the ROMs were unencrypted, which means you can't just take them and put them in MAME. I remember the Sega Genesis and Master Collection was like that, where the ROMs were encrypted, but there was a way to unencrypt those to get to run on Sega Genesis emulators. Until last week, that was years ago when I did that, so I don't even remember how to do that. Besides, that's not available on Steam anymore. Anyways, unless you, of course, bought it before it was delisted. But thank you very much for listening to my rambling. If you know any other ways in which you can acquire ROMs legally via purchasing, be it a collection of games where you can take the ROMs out like here, or with the Neo Geo collection, or otherwise, let me know, because, legal emulation is something I am interested in. I should say accessible legal emulation, because expecting people to run out and buy expensive PCB boards and capture card off of that, I don't even think you can capture card off a PCB board plugged into your PC. I'm not sure, because I don't really mess around with that side of things. Because I've had people ask me, do it on actual hardware, and I would love to, but I'm a poor guy. I don't have the money to buy PCBs, let alone the space and electricity and PC power to get a cabinet going and to record off of that. So that's why all my recordings are done off of emulators. It's just more convenient. And it'd be cool to see that kind of convenience make it into the 21st century. I know when it comes to... I'm going on a tangent here, but I know when it comes to other games, other systems, there's been some reverse engineering in a sense. There are actual PC versions, so to speak, of Perfect Dark and Star Fox. They can actually play. You've, of course, got to obtain the ROM yourself. Same thing for, I think it was Sonic Unleashed, actually, on the Xbox 360, I think. They found a way to make it run on PC. And there was a decompiler that was released recently for Xbox 360 games that it doesn't exactly make it a PC port, but it just starts the snowball, so to speak, going. It starts the process for that, so to speak. And I think there was something else too. No, that's all I know for so far. But it'd be cool to see if there's a way to do that. I mean, I know MAME is kind of like that, but MAME is more focused on preservation of games and having them just have a way to run. Because arcade games, they grow decrepit and they break. And some of them even have what's called a suicide battery, where if that battery dies, the PCB goes with it. So it's great. I'm grateful for MAME team, dev team, and what they've done. It's allowed me, myself, and many people to experience arcade games. But it's not really made with convenience in mind, if that makes sense. But that's because their focus is on elsewhere. Their heart's in a different place, and I can respect that, 100% respect that. It's more about preservation rather than gameplay, if that makes any sense. But anyways, that's my jibber jabbering. Thank you guys for tuning in. Remember to rate and comment. Let me know, again, if you've spotted any other ways of obtaining ROMs outside of just acquiring them through dubious means. If you want to help support the channel, of course, sharing video around always helps, and we have monetization ways of doing that, such as we've got a Patreon, we've got I think we get the Ko-fi back, and also a merch shop if you want to check that out for my terribly generically put together t-shirts. But regardless, anyways, I want to let you guys know I'm WrestleJoestar, and remember, no matter what anybody says, you are a beautiful star. Take care, and until next time.